I had been dealing with the fact that prior to the announcement to the country of your appointment as Commissioner of SARS, you were aware, and former President Zuma was aware, and Mr. Moyane of Bain was aware that you were earmarked for the position. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
I have asked for 2 files to be placed before you. I will be referring to them most often. And so could you look firstly at your witness affidavit at bundle 03, and in particular page 32. And here I'm continuing with the chronology that you had set out in your account in paragraph 66. So having described how the President informed you that he intended to appoint you and that you kept this information only to yourself and your wife, you then in paragraph 66.6 to 8 say the following: during a follow-up visit to the President to discuss the matter, I happened to find him in a meeting with the Chairman and CEO of Telkom in the presence of the Managing Director of Bain, who introduced himself as a Mr. Moyane. So just pausing there, I understand your version to be that this was just a chance meeting, it wasn't an arranged meeting between you and Mr. Moyane.
Yes.
Then,
I'm sorry. You referred to the Chairman and CEO of Telkom. Was that one and the same person, or there were 2 people, one being Chairman and the other one being CEO?
2.
And who were they at the time?
Can I mention the names?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jabu Mabuza and the current CEO of Telkom.
Mr. Sipho Masago?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
thank you. Then 66.7, that's Mr. Moyane, I take it, informed me that he was assisting Telkom with strategy with great results. I took his business card, or we exchanged telephone numbers. All this happened in the waiting area where I was awaiting my turn to go inside. Then 66.8, on a subsequent date, and after doing my own research on his company, I contacted the gentleman and informed him confidentially that I was earmarked to potentially take up the position of SARS Commissioner if the President was to serve a second term, as explained above. So just stopping there, if I could. Your version is that this was just a chance meeting with Mr. Moyane. I just want to take you, please, to what Mr. Moyane said about this. And would you please turn to Annexure AW50. This you will find in the other file I asked you to have handy. That's bundle 01. And please turn to page 276. You have that?
Mm-hmm.
That is an affidavit that was submitted by Mr. Moyane to the Nugent Commission. And I want to point out paragraph 7 on page 277, where Mr. Moyane says, after consultation of my records and to the best of my recollection, I have had the meetings or encounters with Mr. Moyane as set out below. I was introduced to Tom Moyane by Duma and Ndlovu. I was told by Ndlovu that Moyane had approached him and asked him for an introduction to Bain because he had heard about Bain's successful work at Telkom and wished to understand more about how Bain worked. he says, Mr. Masoni, that the two of you were introduced by Mr. Duma and Lovo. Do you have any recollection of that?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct. Just, go closer to the mic. Okay, it's correct.
All right, thank you. As far as when that happened, we discussed that a little earlier, and I think you were not entirely sure of when you were first introduced. And I wanted to just suggest to you, based upon what Bain have said, that it was during or about October 2013. And why I say that is because of the press statement that I took you to earlier at AW45. We're still in SARS-01, page 252. Which one? Page 252, bundle 01.
And the other one.
Which one? I'm not sure which one you're in.
I think you might wish to pull the mic closer to you once you are done with the files, Mr. Moyane, so that your answers will be recorded. If you pull it, I think it does move, but I don't know how much. Yeah, okay.
Which page?
252. That is the beginning page of a press statement which Bain issued, and I'd like to take you to page 253 on the left-hand side. 253. You have that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The second paragraph, what Bain says publicly is, in October 2013, Mr. Masoni was also introduced to Mr. Moyane, later to become the Commissioner of SARS by Mr. Duma and Lovo, an external advisor to Bain at that time. It would appear that Mr. Masoni understood that Mr. Moyane was the President's intended appointee to be SARS Commissioner well before it happened. So just, I refer you to the date, October 13. Does that sound about right in the chronology?
I can't recall conclusively, sir.
All right, but it doesn't sound out of place, does it? Or what do you say about that?
I don't know, sir. I can't recall.
Is your recollection that you met Mr. Masoni for the first time before the end of 2013, or is it that it was in 2014?
Because in October 2013, I was working at SITA, so I can't recall. I was working at SITA. I was seconded at SITA. I can't recall conclusively, sir.
Yes.
Yes, because
Okay.
Minister Sisulu had brought me in to assist at SITA.
Okay.
All right, so are you saying you're not particularly sure about that? Mr. Moyane?
Yes, I said I can't recall, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Could I then refer you to another document, please?
Pardon?
It's the same bundle.
Okay.
I'll tell you when to change. Thank you. It's AW67, page 420.
Page
420.
420.
Chair. This is another annexure to Mr. Williams's statement. And it is a partner self-assessment by Mr. Masoni dated the 6th of December 2013. And this is a document which was given to Mr. Williams as part of his investigation. Could I ask you to look at the second paragraph? You're welcome to read the first if you wish. But this is Mr. Moyane telling his superiors, as I understand it, what he has been doing in South Africa. And he says, as a halo effect of the relationship with SIPO and the role we played in the Phoenix Project. I'll stop you there. Do you know what the Phoenix Project was?
No, I don't know what Phoenix Project is all about, sir.
We have been involved in preparing a high-level, inside-out strategic turnaround document on the
I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin. Outside in. You said inside out. Whatever difference, I don't know what difference it makes.
Outside-in strategic turnaround document on SARS. The person we prepared the document with and who pitched it to the SA president is most likely to be appointed as the commissioner in the next few weeks, months, and Bain will be assisting him should he get the job. SARS is one of the largest and highly estimated government agency and a large Bain client in the previous dispensation, brackets 90s. So this is just again, if I could, the date is 6 December 2013. It would appear from what Mr. Moyane is writing here that the two of you were well known to each other at least by December 2013. Would you agree?
Chair, with due respect, I can't recall conclusively. But all I can say is confirm that Mr. Moyane and Duma were people who frequently met, so I'm not sure as to why I feature there. Certainly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But would you take any issue with his recollection of what when you met?
When he speaks about a halo effect and Project Phoenix, honestly speaking, under oath, I don't know what Project Phoenix is all about. And if I knew, I would confirm and collaborate with you here on this matter. I don't know what that Project Phoenix is all about.
All right. He then talks about preparing a document with you and you pitching it to the SA president. We'll get onto those presentations in due course, but can you confirm that was the so-called SARS 100 days document? Would you agree?
Where's the SARS 100 days?
No, it doesn't say that.
Okay.
He says we have been involved in preparing a high-level, outside-in strategic turnaround document on SARS. The person we prepared the document with and who pitched it to the SA president is most likely to be appointed as commissioner in the next few weeks or months. So that's must be referring to you. Do you accept that?
Yes, they may be referring to me, but I might not have been part of that discussion as to what they were preparing that for document for. I don't know.
Yes. So you don't know precisely which one?
I don't know Project Phoenix, because if there was a project codenamed Project Phoenix, I would know about it.
I think Project Phoenix relates to probably Telkom, if I'm not mistaken, based on what, because he refers to SIPO, whom I take to be Mr. Sipho Masaivo, because he has referred to him elsewhere. Is that your understanding as well, Mr. Franklin?
Yes, it goes a little wider than that. I think it's all state-owned agencies.
Okay, okay.
But in any event, as I understand it, Mr. Moyane, you can't recall precisely when you first met, but you accept that the meeting took place via the introduction of Mr. Duma and Lovo. I want to just refer you to a contract, please, at AW 18, page 176.
That's 176 of the same bundle.
Correct.
That is SARS bundle 1. It helps to mention the bundles when we are using many bundles, so that the reader in the transcript knows which one we are
further
referring
record.
to at any particular time.
Yes. So
So-
this is bundle 1,
Yes,
176.
Yes. You said the page is 176.
Correct.
I've got it.
Now that's an agreement.
Have you got it, Mr. Moyane?
Yes, I think I've got it. I'll see whether I'm together
Page
with
176 of SARS Bundle 1.
Right, and if you look please at the heading, Business Development and Stakeholder Management Contract, and then the opening words are, this document defines the context, the content, objectives, governance, timing, and financial terms of the collaboration between Bain and Company South Africa Inc. and Ambro Wright Limited in a business development and stakeholder management mandate. Are you familiar with the company Ambro Wright?
none at all.
Did you know Mr. Duma Ndlovu before?
Yes, I said I do.
You did. And in what context did you know him?
He's a musician, he's a playwright, and we went to school together. He was a classmate of my younger brother.
All right, you say he's a musician and a playwright.
Yes, yes.
Right. Now, once Mr. Ndlovu had introduced you to Mr. Moyane, am I correct that there were then regular meetings between you and Mr. Moyane, and in at least some of those meetings you discussed presentations which had been compiled in relation to SARS. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I want to understand, where does Ambro Bright Company come in here with myself on this matter?
Yes, well, as we understand it, that was a contract that was concluded between Bain and Ambrobite,
Yes.
and the point of it was in para 1. You see that?
Yes, paragraph 1.
And you can read the para 2 as well if you wish, but it appears that Bain contracted with Ambrobite in order to identify government and state-owned enterprise sector as a strategic priority and to introduce people to them. That was the purpose, and then para 3 sets out the content and objective of the contract. And for instance, there are many different objectives, but look at the bottom of the page, page 177. Facilitate the introduction or directly introduce Bain partners to those key leaders and decision makers. You see that?
177, yes.
So, are you surprised that Mr. Duma Ndlovu, who you knew as a musician and a playwright, was engaged by this international consulting firm to introduce them to key leaders in business?
I wasn't aware that Mr. Duma Ndlovu was involved in consultancy. All I knew about him is that he's a playwright and somebody who was in the entertainment sector. So this part comes as a surprise to me. I don't know about it.
All right.
Just 1 second. Just want to find out from the transcribers whether they can hear Mr. Moyane clearly for purposes of transcript. Is there somebody who can give me an indication there? Looks like there is nobody.
I'll try to bring it closer, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, Chair, I'm told by Ms. September of the Commission that she is having difficulty, for instance, hearing from her vantage point.
Yes.
So, Mr. Moyane, you need to speak up, please.
Yes.
I will do so.
I think initially when you start talking, one can hear, but towards the end, you lower your voice or you swallow the words. I also see that we seem not to have certain admin staff that normally helps when there are these challenges. But let's continue. Maybe somebody will come in. Okay.
Thank you.
Try Mr. Moyane to speak up. I know that when you have to read a document, a file that is not on the desk, you are further from the mic. Just try and speak up. Okay, let's continue.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Moyane had said that he was surprised to see that Mr. Ndlovu was involved in a contract of this nature. Right. I then put to you that once you had met Mr. Moyane, you had a number of meetings with him, firstly, and I must also ask you, with others at Bain, and you together compiled various presentations and had meetings about those presentations in relation to SARS. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I'd like to take you to certain of these presentations and ask you to identify whether you are familiar with them. And firstly, I want to point out to you in paragraph 66.9, page 3-33 of your affidavit, so that's in SARS Bundle 3.
Which page?
33. Paragraph 66.9.
We're going back to his affidavit?
Yes, just momentarily.
Okay, that's bundle 3, page, paragraph 66.
You said, indeed, we embarked on the agreed low-key preparation and coaching covering general CEO or leadership training, but also obviously targeted towards my forthcoming potential posting at SARS. In the process, I received and also generated a lot of researched information. It was in this context that the presentation brackets S referred to and attached by Mr. Williams in his affidavit were made. All right. Do you have any recollection of how frequently you met with Moyane and anyone else from Bain before you took up the position as Commissioner?
Yes, it was Mr. Moyane, I think, with Mr. Franzen. Could be Franzen.
Yes. And how frequently did you meet? Was this a regular thing?
Perhaps once or twice in a month.
Once or twice in a month? From when you first met him, we're not sure where that is, until you were appointed in September of 2014. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't know when we started, but I met him when I became
All right.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Is your recollection that from whatever time it was when you met him for the first time, from then right through to your appointment, you were meeting him maybe once or twice
Yes,
every month?
once a month, twice,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
And in that paragraph that I took you to, you say it was in this context that the presentations referred to and attached by Mr. Williams in his affidavit were made. I want to take you to those presentations because I take it that you looked at them when you compiled your witness statement. I'm going to go through a list of them, please, and unfortunately you're now back in bundle 01. The first one is AW 55, page 318.
155?
AW, that's the annexure number, and the page number is 01, page 318. You have that?
Mm-hmm.
That is called Sizakelo, Reshaping South African Economy, dated the 11th of August 2012. Is that a presentation which you discussed with either Bain or then President Zuma?
I don't know, sir, because it speaks about different organizations. There's no SARS here. And it's dated the 11th of August 2012. And when you look at it casually, so it speaks about the ICT landscape. So
all right,
I would not have discussed ICT matters.
All right, then the second one is AW 56, page 323. That is headed Project Phoenix, Reshaping South African Economy, dated 23 August 2012. Again, are you familiar with that? Did you see it at the time and discuss it with Bain?
No. Perhaps I need to draw your attention to that diagram, X Strategic Mission, 3 strategic pillars for South African economy. You would see that they're speaking about broadband, so it would relate to telecom.
Yes.
So I had nothing to do with telecom.
I just wanted to take you through it because you didn't in your statement. You referred to presentations without restricting them, so I just wanted to make sure.
No, correct.
All right, let me then take you to AW 91, which is at page 484. SARS 01484. Right, that is a document headed SARS 2.0, Sunday 13 October 2013. I take it this one you are familiar with.
I note.
Right, then please look at AW 92, SARS 01, page 491.
Just before you move away from page 484, Mr. Franklin, Mr. Moyane,
sir,
if that date at page 484 for that document, that's written SARS 2.0, namely Sunday 13th October 2013, if that date reflects the date when the document was written, would you accept that it's likely that by that date you would have been, you would have met with Mr. Moyane and you would have started to have your interactions with him?
It could be, Chair, because I would like to deny and
Yeah.
push everything on the side.
Yeah.
But as we speak, I'll be able to pick up the nuance and the trajectory.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I understand that some of the things you can't remember, but you don't necessarily dispute, but you just can't remember. Okay, all right, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you. So that was the first one. The second one is at, it's Annexure AW92, and it is at SARS-01, page 492. That is called TM First 100 Days, May 26th, 2014. That one I take it you're familiar with as well.
Yes, this one I'm familiar with.
And do you agree that either this SARS 2.0 and or TM First 100 Days was presented by you to President Zuma?
No, I didn't present anything to President Zuma. It was a discussion between myself and Mr. Masoni.
All right, we'll come back to that. Then the next one that I want to identify is AW 100. And that is at page SARS 01, page 534. That is dated August 2014 and is titled SARS 2.1 - What Has to Be Done. Once again, is that one that you are familiar with?
Sorry, which one? 534.
Yes, page 534.
I have something different here.
You don't have SARS 2.0. What has to be done?
Are you looking at the top left?
Have you found
My
it?
apology, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. So just to be clear,
May I just? Yeah.
SARS 01, page 534, entitled, the document is entitled SARS 2.0 - What Has to Be Done, August 2014. Is that similarly a presentation with which you are familiar?
Yes. Yes.
And then the last one I want to refer you to is AW97, which is at SARS 01, page 513.
$513.
Correct.
Yes.
That is headed Review of SARS Operating Model and Structure, August 2014. Is that also a presentation with which you are familiar?
Yes, I am.
Can I take you back to page 534, Mr. Moyane? 534, the one we were looking at a few minutes ago, the one that's written SARS 2.0, what has to be done?
Yes. I'm
You're
there,
there.
Chair.
Okay, all right. If you are familiar with this one, it would seem that in August 2014, they may have been already working on some documents relating to SARS in August 2014. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. And bearing in mind Or the advertisement was 2013, not 2014.
Correct,
But the
2013.
appointment was 2014.
September.
September. So it took about a year as advertisement before the appointment was made.
That's correct.
Okay, then I understand. Yeah.
Just to clarify, Chair, the first of the SARS presentations, which I identified for the witness, is dated 13 October 2013.
Yes, yeah. I remember that.
So I think you accepted earlier, Mr. Moyane, that once you had been introduced to Bain, that you and Mr. Masoni and perhaps Mr. Franzen commenced preparation for you being appointed to SARS, correct?
Correct. I think it's important also to inform the chair that when I was informed by the president, former president, I therefore started doing my own research, because in the event or that this happens, it should not find me wanting. And therefore
it shouldn't be like you didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I took this seriously, but it was subject to this. I need to
your
emphasize.
appointment.
Yes, it was subject to.
Yeah. No.
And I need to emphasize here, I should think there's one wherein it speaks about the operating model.
Yes.
The operating model. I had gone to the SARS website and I read the annual performance plan of 2014-2015. And there on page 27, it says SARS had committed to cabinet or to government that operating model that they were using would have to be changed by 2015. So I was just looking as to what operating model was it. So I was reading.
Yes.
So I'm just giving a context check.
Yes.
So that these discussions were not discussions that were taking place in a vacuum.
Yeah. Okay.
They were preparatory to you taking over as Commissioner?
In the event, yes.
Right. And you have said in your witness statement at paragraph 66.8, SARS 03, page 32.
SARS?
03, page 32.
That's bundle 3.
Which bundle? This
Bundle 3.
Bundle 3.
Yeah.
Page
32.
Yes.
You have it?
Yes.
Starting on the 5th line, you were dealing here with your interactions with Mr. Masoni, and you say, he, that's Masoni, in turn informed me about a program of CEO coaching in which I expressed an interest to undergo, as I was in any event doing extensive research on the workings of SARS. Like some of the previous appointees, including Mr. Gordon, and that although I felt well qualified for the position, I did not have any experience in taxation, but was a generalist manager or senior executive in the public sector. Then 66.9, indeed, we embarked on the agreed low-key preparation and coaching covering general CEO or leadership training, but also obviously targeted towards my forthcoming potential posting at SARS. In the process, I received and also generated a lot of researched information. It was in this context that the presentations referred to and attached by Mr. Williams in his affidavit were made. Now, could I just ask you there, I've taken you to the various SARS presentations. We'll get to them now, but they're very detailed documents. Would you agree with me that they go beyond mere CEO coaching or an attempt to assist you with your position, and they contain detailed plans for SARS in the event that you were to take up the position?
I wouldn't understand why you say they went to detail. when you do research, you go deep into the analysis of what you want to achieve.
No, I said they
And
were detailed, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
I said they were detailed.
I couldn't hear properly.
Yes.
Oh, he says he did not say they were not detailed. He said they were detailed.
Yes.
So you would agree they contained the product of your input and Bain's input in relation to a plan for you in the event that you were to take over as commissioner. You agree?
Correct. Subject to, once again, yes.
Yes. Let me take you, please, to the document which I identified earlier, and that's the TM first 100 days. That's AW92, page 01-491.
That's bundle 1. And what's the page number?
Yes, and the page number is 492. Right, this is headed first 100 days, that's self-explanatory. And on the left-hand side in the middle of the page, proposed new vision and ambition for SARS, a new transformation agenda must be set up. And then over the page, on page 493, in the middle of the page, key immediate actions for discussion. 1, keep the ball rolling. 2, gain the high ground. 3...
Sorry, sir. I don't want to lose you.
Page
You
493.
say 493.
Yes. On the
493
left-hand side.
for me is annexure AW 94.
Oh, that should not be like that.
Could you kindly help me when you say 493 black or 493
Yes,
red?
as I indicated to Mr. Moyane, I'll
Okay.
always refer to the black numbers in the top
Okay,
left.
493, yes.
Well, we may have confused you, Mr. Moyane, because I think there was a bundle that, at least in a certain section, only had red numbers, and we used red numbers then. So, but most of the time it will be black numbers when Mr. Franklin says, that gives you the page number, but if it's a red number, he will announce. Have you found the page?
I did. I found the page.
Okay.
Right, so I had identified for you what was written on page 493, in the middle of the page on the left-hand side. Key immediate actions for discussion. 1, keep the ball rolling. 2, gain the high ground. 3, take control. See that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And can I just take you to para 3, take control? There are a number of bullet points there. And you say in the third bullet point, rather small, testing BH and assessing performance of competence of COO perimeter. You see that?
Yes, I have.
BH refers to Barry Hoare, is that correct? Was the COO at the time.
Yes.
And then you say launch forensic investigation. Then you say create 1 leadership spine, quickly color code the exec and management team, top 100, and reshuffle. Then you say assess key roles where to introduce new people. You say set up transformation program office. And you say hire a new assistant. Now, at this stage, am I correct? You had not of course, you had not been into SARS, you had not been able to do an independent review of the SARS situation, correct?
Correct.
And nor had Bain, correct?
Come again?
Nor had Bain done that exercise.
I don't know, but I would assume so.
You assume they wouldn't. You were discussing with them at the
Well,
time.
I don't know. They might have done big companies have systems as to how they conduct their analysis of various companies.
Yes. But as far as you knew, they had not yet been let into SARS. They had not yet been appointed.
Correct.
Yes. And then you say on the second part of the page, also in the middle, build a healthy sponsorship spine to accelerate change and identify individuals to neutralize. So just pausing there, you contemplated in this plan that there would be, am I correct, a dramatic change to SARS, if and when you got there.
Yeah, I took advantage of the fact that the APP spoke of a reorganization of SARS, so which meant Parliament, in its wisdom, was aware of certain shortfalls that were happening within that environment. So, if I may refer to you, Chair, it's APP of 2014-2015. If you may allow me to read it for you.
APP stands for?
Annual Performance Plan.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, what document are you reading from, a bundle?
No, I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
It's a document that is official.
Yes, but
as a reference.
you've got
yes.
a copy.
Yes, I
You've got
can.
a copy.
I have it on my phone.
Yes, but we need to, if it's not in the bundles, then
That's fine. Point
Yeah.
taken.
if you want to...
Yes, but you can arrange for us to get it.
I'll get it a copy for you.
Yes, but you wanted to make a certain point. You want to make that point?
Yeah, I'm making that
Make
point
the
that it does indicate that SARS was obligated in
Yeah.
any form that by 2015 March,
Yeah.
it should have a new operating model.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you say that was the annual performance plan of SARS as in 2014,
2015.
2015,
2014, 2015.
2014, 2015.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, well, that document hasn't featured yet, so I'm not sure of it, Mr. Moyane, but if you wish to produce this, please do so. I was referring you to the middle of the page on page 493, build a healthy sponsorship spine to accelerate change and identify individuals to neutralize. I think you accepted that the plan envisages far-reaching change. Was that correct?
Well, an operating model by nature presupposes that there will be fundamental changes in the organization.
Right. And then you say identify individuals to neutralize. What did you mean by the word neutralize?
Well, the term is unfortunately used there. It should not have been in that context.
Well, what does...
To accelerate change in order to consolidate the structure of the organization.
Yes, but this appears in the plan, and the word neutralize was included, and I'm just trying to find out why that word was used in this plan.
I think if I had my notes with me on this matter, I would have written on the document that this might not be, because this is a document presented, does not necessarily mean that to accept everything that is there. There are changes that happen in the discussion. You make your notes, and the discussion takes place.
I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin.
Sure.
Oh, now I see. Yes, now I see where you are. I had lost you, so I've seen now. Okay.
All right, and then you said earlier that the word neutralize, I think you said, was unfortunate. Is that correct?
That's
And
true.
why do you say that? Or what connotations about it are unfortunate?
Perhaps the context in which it has been used here.
Yes, but what is the meaning that you find unfortunate?
Well, I did explain that it should not have been this. My writing would be to identify measures to put as stratified measures in the organization, not to neutralize. Neutralize is creating a very, what you call confrontational, removing people and creating an organization that is unstable. Mine was to build, not to come and destroy.
I see. Then at the bottom right-hand corner, you've got 3 bullet points. Identify positive change sponsors, bottom up. Second one is leverage external influences. And thirdly, identify individuals that could hamper change, colon, dash, watch outs, dash, to neutralize. Now, you would agree with me that that last bullet point suggests that it was part of your plan to identify individuals at SARS who might hamper the changes you wish to introduce, and there were people who you would label watch-outs, and they were people that you would wish to neutralize. Would you agree that that is what appears in the writing?
No.
Well,
what appears there is not what in reality in life happens.
Yes, but that's a different point.
Yeah, I'm saying it's a presentation. It's a presentation. That's not what I envisaged going to that organization.
I think Mr. Franklin's question, Mr. Moyane, is more about what meaning one gets when just one reads what is written, yes, irrespective of whether that is what was intended or not. If you view the question in that light, what would you say? Would you
well,
agree
in
with
any
me?
organization, change brings uncertainty. There will be resistance to change. Nothing happens in a changeless environment. And therefore, in the context of that, I was aware in my mind there will be those who will be saying they don't want this. It's a natural reaction. But I'm saying in that context, you need also to have a strategy to bring them in, not to leave them outside.
Yes.
So the word neutralize is not, as I'm saying here, change is a very difficult. Human beings by their nature are not...
Do you understand the word neutralize to include remove or something like that?
No.
You don't understand it that way?
You don't go to an organization to remove people.
Yes,
you first make an assessment.
Yes.
I had no authority at all given that because I do not have that Solomonic view as to who is there, who does what. Mine is to say, yes, there will be changes that have to take place. There will be resistance. There will be those who are amenable to change. And all those factors will have to be taken into account. Those will be slow. Those will be resistant. And you need to have a process because some of them might be key in the organization, but they might see change as a threat. You need to find a strategy to bring them in.
What would you say to an interpretation that says neutralize would include that if certain people are not going along with the change that is proposed, but they are powerful or influential, you need to reduce their influence? Would you say that's a fair meaning to give, or would you say not?
No, Chair, I think we will be practical on this matter for the purpose of this organization. There are people who, when I was there, they did not see some of the changes as practical. And they voiced their apprehension about it. And you have to find a measure to understand why and how you take them along. It doesn't happen overnight, and that is a process which you have to engage on an ongoing basis. Because I might be wrong, they might be right. Therefore, you can't have your views superseding any other views in the organization. We have that, and it happens in organization of all sorts.
Okay, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Moyane. There are 2 different points, and I want to clarify them. I've directed your attention to the bottom right-hand corner of page SARS 01493, the last bullet point, identify individuals. You know that? You've seen
Yes.
it? And you said, no, that's not what you intended and that's not what actually happened. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm asking you, however, to read the words and assist in understanding what is written here, whether you intended it or not. But do you accept that as it is written there, what it conveys is that you would identify people, individuals, who might hamper change, they would be regarded as watchouts, and you would then have to neutralize them. Is that correct? That's what is written here. We'll get on to what you did.
Yeah, I do understand. I'm not sure who prepared this document, but you must bear in that Mr. Massoni is not an English speaking, he's an Italian. So context and the manner in which he might have been good in English, but at times when you do a presentation, you could have, in his thought process, this is what they intend. But in my discussion, there was never a time wherein there was to neutralize anyone.
But can you get back to my question? Do you agree with the interpretation I've given, whether it was
No,
wrongly
I don't agree with your interpretation that there was an intention to neutralize anyone. I don't agree with you.
I'm sorry, the word is used to neutralize.
Yes, I'm saying...
I'm asking you to fix on the words and help us with what it means in this presentation. I know your evidence is that that's not what you intended. I'm asking you simply to accept.
I don't accept that there was any intention to neutralize. That's what's written. But there was never any intention to neutralize anybody.
Hang on, Mr. Moyane. Let's accept for present purposes that in your own mind you didn't intend that this should mean this, and Mr. Massoni in his own mind also did not intend what you didn't intend. What Mr. Franklin is simply asking is, but not knowing what was intended by Mr. Moyane or Mr. Massoni, when you read this, what does it tell you? What is the meaning you get? It may be that when you say to Mr. Moyane, but how could you say this? Mr. Moyane might say, but that's not what I intended. It's just an unfortunate word, but I understand when somebody reads it and thinks it means this. You understand what I'm saying? I do
understand, Chair.
Yes.
It gives a very bad connotation.
Yes. I think Mr. Franklin is looking for that bad connotation on your understanding, to say the connotation it gives. The bad connotation is the following. You want to address that?
Yes, I'm saying in the manner it is written,
yes,
the connotation is very wrong and unacceptable.
Yes.
Because in a normal course of any event, any leader worth his salt would not get into a situation where you neutralize, especially considering the fact that you're coming to a new organization. Secondly, even if they are there for some time, you don't neutralize people. You have a discussion, an engagement with them. So I'm saying, I did say, Chair, that it's unfortunate the usage of the language here and the terms. So I'm not trying to malign, I'm just trying to explain that in my mind, personally, I would not. And I think possibly even when Mr. Massoni wrote this, taking into account, it's hypothetical, being Italian, he in Italian could have been, because if you say in Portuguese neutralizar, it might not mean neutralize in the same way as in English.
Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Moyane. I think that you agree with the proposition I put ultimately as to what the words would mean in their ordinary context. And I understand you to say that that was not what you intended. I do not have any SARS first 100-day plan where that wording was changed. Are you aware of any plan in which that wording was changed?
Unless you direct me to it, sir. I'm sitting here with documents.
Yes.
But certainly, that would have not have been the measure of transforming an organization using such terms as neutralization of people.
My question is, are you, as the person who was party to this plan, aware of any amendment to the plan where these offending words were deleted?
These were working documents, and therefore they were not part of the official implementation in the organization. These were documents outside and therefore subject for a discussion.
And having,
Unless there's a document after or post my appointment that speaks about this, then you can measure me in the context of the words that have been used.
yes, but my question is a simple one. You were party to the discussions with Mr. Masoni and Mr. Franzen. But prior to you taking up your position, I'm asking you, are you aware of any update to this plan where these offending words were deleted?
None whatsoever in my time and nature. I don't remember ever seeing a document with such documents. Can't recall really.
Right, then could you...
I'm sorry, did you, after your appointment, did you have an official document of the first 100 days that was guiding you as
Yes.
to what to try and achieve?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, there was.
Do you know if it is in these bundles?
I'm not sure.
You have not come
Chairperson.
across
No,
it?
no.
Okay. And are you able to say whether its basis was this, it came from these discussions and this document, in other words, it was prepared against the background of these discussions?
Well, the document sets a vision.
Yeah.
Once you are there, you are able to measure the mood. So the document might not be mirror reflect what is happening on the ground. Therefore, it has to be modified in accordance with the conditions that are objective on the ground.
Yes.
So what you discussed before and what you discuss when you are there would not be the same because the environment is different.
Do you remember whether when you started on your first day, you already had that or you developed it after you had
We
arrived?
developed it after.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And referring to the same page, why was it necessary to test Barry Hall?
Certainly I don't know.
Yes,
So
can't
where
recall.
is
I
that
can't
part,
recall.
Mr. Franklin?
it's on page 491. I took the witness to it. It's on the left-hand side of the page, on the lower side of the page, under the heading, Take Control.
My 491 is
493, my lord.
493. You want to direct me where about?
Lower part of the page, left-hand side, paragraph 3, Take Control. The third bullet point.
And there are,
Does the chair have it?
I've got 493. That is, or take control, bullet point 3. Is that right?
That's right. It's
Or
Take
is it
Control.
the BH? Is it BH?
That's correct. It's the third bullet point.
Yes, okay, all right. And that BH you say stands for?
Barry Hall.
Is it very Hall?
Spelled H-O-R-E,
Yes.
who was the then Chief Operating Officer.
Yeah, okay. Continue.
Yes. Mr. Moyane, why in your planning did you believe it was necessary to test Barry Hall?
There was no intention to test Mr. Barry Hall. The spine of the organization hinged on the IT component because SARS by its nature is IT intensive. So as to why it says test, they have done the assessment, they might have known what is happening within the organization. There was no mandate whatsoever to test anyone.
But it's written there. That's the point.
Yeah, I'm saying, sir, it's written there. We keep on going to this thing that is written. Yes, I accept. But there was nothing to indicate that there was a need for us to test Mr. Barry Hall. Because if you go into the 100 days, de facto go to SARS and ask for the documents, there was nothing of that nature.
Did you ask Mr. Mozono why he put in test Barry Hall here, Barry Hall here?
That's the right question. He says this organization evolves around this particular individual. And therefore, the span of running this mammoth organization is around the what you call robustness of the IT system, ability to interact and interface with taxpayers. So I don't recall wherein we said this individual have to be tested. It was looking as to what is it that happens in that environment, how it is run, what needs to be done. That's the intent of what happened. Because indeed, when I went to SARS, I discovered in reality that the whole organization rotates on a very efficient IT system. So you can't go and tinker with something that brings revenue to the country. So the context perhaps is misplaced here. And I want to put it on record, Mr. Beluho left on his own accord, hardly 3 months on my post. And I can put it on record, he came to me and said, Commissioner, now that you have been appointed, it has been my intention to leave the organization. And I had a long discussion with him. Because I found it very strange that I'm new here. Here's the man who is a cog around which this organization evolves. He's leaving. I persuaded him, and he told me that he has been here for a long time, and he wanted his own time. No acrimonious relationship, he may be called here. We never had any fights, and therefore, I think he said, I had already discussed this with the acting commissioner then, that as soon as the new commissioner arrives, I'll be leaving.
Okay, Mr.
Yes,
President.
you see, Mr. Moyane, that's with respect. The problem is that Mr. Barry Hoare was neutralized, wasn't he? He left in December.
Chair, Chair, I
wait.
disagree.
Let him finish, then you can respond.
He was neutralized. He left in December 2014, less than 3 months after you'd taken up your post. The COO of this organization, who, as I understand it, was a leading light, left within 3 months of you arriving. That, with respect, appears to reflect exactly the intention that is recorded on page 493, and which you now wish to distance yourself from.
I take serious umbrage about this, serious umbrage. And I feel offended to be told that I neutralized him. He was marginalized. I seriously, Chair, take exception to this statement. Because Barry Hoare left the organization at his own accord. Are you telling me that when you join the organization, leave a month thereafter, it's precisely because of your nature and demeanor? People leave for various reasons. And I want, therefore, to believe that, therefore, what Barry told me was a lie.
Yes.
I took it on good faith that this man is leaving because he said he had spoken to the previous commissioner. And I did, on record, Chair, I went to the minister. And then I said, Minister, I have a problem in my hands here. You can call Minister Nene to come here. I said, Minister, there's a serious problem here. Barry Hoare says to me he's leaving. How do I address this matter? The whole intellectual property of this organization rotates around him. So there's no succession planning. So, sir, I would like that statement to be retracted. I did not marginalize him. He left on his own accord. He wrote.
You see, the difficulty that I have with respect, and which this commission will have to grapple with, and certainly the difficulty which the Nugent Commission had, was this wasn't an isolated departure, was it?
What do you mean when you say it's an isolated departure?
Well, let me just take this, please. Mr. Barry Hoare, the Chief Operating Officer, resigned within 2 to 3 months of you becoming Commissioner in December of 2014, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Ivan Pillay, the Acting Commissioner, resigned in May of 2015. That's within a few months of you taking over, correct?
Yes. But let's go back, let's not cite dates. Why did they leave?
So
What are the
just-
reasons?
Just stop, Mr. Moyane. I'm going to give you the people and the dates, and then you can get
Okay.
back to it. So that's so far Mr. Hoare, Mr. Ivan Pillay. Thirdly, Mr. Peter Richer, Mr. Pillay was the acting commissioner, I told you. Mr. Peter Richer was the Group Executive, Strategic Planning and Risk, Acting Chief Officer, Strategy, Enablement and Communications. Very long job title. He left in May of 2015, correct?
I'm listening.
Was that correct?
Yes, they left. I can't remember the date and the
Then
month. Yes.
Mr. Jean Ravelli, Chief Officer, Tax and Customs Enforcement Investigations, resigned in May of 2015. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Johan van Lochenberg, Group Executive, Enforcement Investigations, also left in February of 2015. Do you agree?
Yes, February 2015. I'm not sure. Yeah, but he left,
But
yes.
early 2015.
Yeah.
Mr. Adrian Lacaille, who was the spokesperson for SARS, resigned in March of 2015.
Yes.
Correct. So, Mr. Hoare was not an isolated case. There are many others, but this is 6 people from the top echelons of SARS who left before 1 year was up of your tenure. You accept that factually?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they left.
And that is why I press you on the content of your plan, where you said you should take control. You could take control by testing Barry Hoare, that's one of the things to do, and that you were to identify individuals that could hamper change and neutralize them. And it would appear from the facts that that is what you did. What do you say to that?
I deny this with all the contempt it goes with. Perhaps we may need with you, Chairperson, to deal with the individual case by its merit.
But isn't it rather coincidental that 6 senior people left?
Coincidence should not be, but let's speak about the merits, because here it's semantics.
Not semantics.
Because you are saying Barry Hall left because I, as the commissioner, pushed him aside. That's the inference that you are putting to me. I'm saying he left and resigned, citing personal matters. Who am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say, no, he said he was leaving. He gave reasons. And I went to the minister chair and I said, here's, I'm giving one. Here's this person says he's leaving. He needs to come back and says, this is what I did to him.
Do we by any chance have any affidavit from Mr. Periho?
No.
We don't. Okay.
Thank you. Could I ask you to look at AW95?
Now, I would like us to continue on this. Let's not skip this. Let's go to Pillay.
Sorry, Mr. Moyane, I'll ask you the questions.
But you are casting aspersion that they left because of me.
I'm dealing with it, and I'll give you the opportunity to say what you want. I'm dealing with Mr. Barry Hoare.
Okay.
Please look at AW95.
And what is the page?
And that's page SARS 01507. There are 3 brief emails there. The second one in the middle of the page.
Which one? AW?
AW95.
Okay. Sorry.
Page 507.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the page, Mr. Franzen emails Mr. Masoni on the 3rd of December 2014, and he says, "Goodbye, Barry Hoare, ... See that?
Yes.
I presume that's a reference to his departure. And then above that is an email from Mr. Masoni to Mr. Franzen, and he says the following: "Now I'm scared by Tom. this guy was supposed to be untouchable, and it took Tom just a few weeks to make him resign. Scary. See that?
Yes.
So I don't think it requires much interpretation, Mr. Moyane. Mr. Masoni, with whom you had been dealing now for many months, says of Barry Hoare's departure, now I'm scared by you. Tom, you accept he's talking about you?
I hear what you're saying.
Do you accept he was talking about you?
Yes, I see that he's talking about me.
This guy, you accept he's talking about Barry Hoare, correct?
Yes.
This guy was supposed to be untouchable, and it took Tom just a few weeks to make him resign. Scary. So what Mr. Masoni, with whom you have been dealing now for months, meeting regularly and planning, his take of Barry Hoare's departure is anything but benign. Would you agree?
But what?
He sees it as very sinister. Would you agree?
He sees it as sinister.
Yes, in
that
other words,
Barry Hoare is leaving.
yes, he sees it as you driving him out.
That's your interpretation, sir.
Well, what interpretation other than that can
No.
you give? What interpretation can you give other than that?
I can't think on his behalf what Masoni was thinking here. Because when Barry Hoare was leaving, it was public knowledge. He was telling everybody that was leaving. So as to where they picked it up, that's not part of my program.
Would you agree, Mr. Moyane, that this email from Mr. Masoni to Mr. Fabrice Frenzen reflects that Mr. Masoni thought that you took him out, that is Barry Hoare. That's what he thought. You would accept that. That's what the email suggests.
On the face of it, yes.
Yes,
But
yes, yeah. No,
on the face of it,
yeah. You are not necessarily saying you agree that that is what happened, but that's what he seems to have thought.
Well, the other thing, Chair, if I may perhaps make a comment here. When people make their own assessment, they assess everybody that they know in whatever form or shape. And they might have their own opinion on the individual. As to whether it was untouchable, I don't know. All I know, which I can confirm here, that he was a firm man. What he wanted to be done.
Yeah.
So that's all I can take about him. He was resolute in whatever he wanted. Of course, I would engage and we have a discussion on this matter, like any other person.
Let me just mention to you the impression that I get from this so that you can comment on it when one reads it together with that plan of 100 days that we dealt with earlier. You have that part which was saying test Barry Hoare, okay? Testing Barry Hoare, you remember that part?
Yes, sir.
That gives me the impression, together with what you said about him, that he was quite
Passionate, yes.
quite important on
Yes.
on SARS, you know. That gives me the impression that the plan had some focus on him. The 100 days had some focus on him. Maybe that was inevitable if he was so important in the organization, but it had some focus on him and contemplated that he needed to be tested, whatever that testing meant, but to be tested. But that Mr. Masoni now thinks that, sure, Tom, as I think he refers to you, is so powerful. This is what he has done to this man that we thought was untouchable. I'm saying That's the impression I'm getting. And I just want you to give you a chance to comment on this impression.
Chair, I wouldn't agree with you, but the context in which you are painting it,
You understand?
I do understand it.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is that the organization, as I said, hinged on what they call the modernization of SARS. That was the heartbeat of the organization. You need to have your systems in place, you needed to have people who understand what the tax organization functions with respect to in the interface with various stakeholders. That's where the heart of the organization was. And therefore, you needed to be able to have someone like him who understands this, someone who is able to defend the territory, someone who says, this is what I see happening in other jurisdictions in the world. So, credit is given to him, credit is due to him. And nowhere in the organization, in my pronouncements, have I said this man was a scum, he was this. This matter was continuously elevated to a level that we cannot go back lower than what the standard has been set. And indeed, when this happened, for me it was a big shock. And I want to emphasize, it was a big shock. He was not a man who talks a lot, he was a man who was practical. He needed things to be done, he would argue for it, and at times would disagree that the manner in which it's being done is not right, let's look at this, let's look at that, but to engage. So if there was a nefarious agenda on my side, I would not have taken this matter to the minister.
Okay. Mr. Franklin?
Yes, Mr. Moyane, I must just suggest to you, reading these documents, that it looks as though this was the execution of a plan. You tested Barry Hall and you neutralized him.
No, you're still putting this, you're trying to throw as much mud that it sticks. I'm saying to you, I did not, with due respect, make Mr. Barry Hall to leave. Because the way you're putting it is that I did finally make this push that he must go.
That is
I'm sorry,
precisely
what was the date of Mr. Berihos's departure? Is there a particular date in December?
Towards
yes,
the end.
The 3rd of December.
3rd of December, yes.
Yes. 3rd of December.
3rd of December.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
Mr. Moyane, just to give further context, am I correct that within 2 weeks of taking over in September of 2014, you had disbanded SARS' EXCO?
Correct.
That's quite a dramatic move, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You felt after 2 weeks that there was a proper basis to get rid of the, am I correct, apart from the board, the most senior body, decision-making body?
No, I did not. Let's roll this movie a little bit back. I was appointed on the 25th, started my duties on Monday the 29th. On Thursday or Friday of that week, I think it was the 4th or the 3rd of October, there was a media inquiry that came through Mr. Lakay about the rogue unit. He copied me and he said, sir, these are the questions, these are the problems that we have that comes from the Sunday Times. I was not aware of what I did ask Mr. Pillay about this. This thing was at the back of my mind. And this was a big thing. He was really big eyes, was worried about it. I said, well, I don't know. You guys have been here longer. These questions are not coming up now. If there's a way of answering them, go ahead. And I did. And he went together with another gentleman whose name I won't mention here so that I don't want to implicate anybody. And I said, draft a response. Because when media ask questions, they want a response. He went as the head of communication and media to draft a response. And they came back and I said, whatever you put forward, I hope this covers the organization. Because these questions are very, very, very probing. It ended there. I did not intervene. Sunday the 5th, The Sunday Times had an expose about the rogue unit. Chair, the rogue unit did not start with me. This thing was being investigated some time back. The world and South Africans are made to think that I came with a rogue unit narrative. I gave Lakay the latitude to respond in the manner that management would have liked to respond to this, because he said to me, we have received similar questions before. So they responded. When I saw this, on Sunday, that very Sunday, I requested EXCO members to come back. Let's discuss this matter. All of them came. I asked Chair, could you, gentlemen and a lady, explain to me what's this? There were members amongst them. Denial, this is an attack on SARS, on this, on this. And I said, but I was not taken into confidence by yourselves. I hope and trust that this matter ends here. We left that matter. The minister called me and said, what's happening? I said, well, sir, I don't know. I was given an assurance that this is just spurious allegations against the organization. A week later, again, questions were fielded. Through whom? Mr. Lakay. Guess what? That Sunday, SARS prostitutes, blah, 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 blah. I was livid about this. Take into account, Chair, that I had raised this matter with the minister also. On that Sunday, the minister was in Durban, in Natal. We agreed to meet at the airport to discuss briefly on this matter because it was a worrisome matter. SARS is an institution that has huge integrity, and its reputation was being dragged by this nefarious or bad press that is being written about it. And I said to the minister, how do we do this? He says, it seems, Commissioner, that you are not being given a true story about this thing. Bear in mind there's an investigation that is taking place on the matter that is happening in the organization. And I say, how do I trust people who don't tell me what needs to be discussed? And I said to him, Minister, I think I'll need to go and talk to EXCO that I think we don't need to have EXCO meetings in the manner in which we are. For the moment, we'll suspend, but operations will continue in the manner in which they are. I never took decisions in that. Like, if it's a matter that has to do with enforcement, I'll have a discussion with the enforcement authority. I communicated my displeasure. But it was not permanently. That was in November, October. By December, we had reinstituted the EXCO. So it was not done in the absence of taking into account that we need leadership at the ground. I was sending a message that let's have a discussion here. Let's be open with one another of what is happening in the organization. What gave me a sense that people are telling me that the rogue unit matter does not exist. Forget about it. I did not initiate it. And as testimony would be given here, why did I have two people coming to me in 2015 to tell me about the rogue unit, that they were part of the rogue unit? I saw the equipment, I interacted with them, and I think I should not be used as a scapegoat for the bad things that happen in the organization. We must admit that there were wrong things that happened in the organization. I did not call Moses Kakani to the organization to do an investigation as to what was happening. I did not call Advocate Moeti Kanyane, who was the predecessor to Mr. Moses Kakani. All these investigations were taking place with the full cooperation of the minister and the acting commissioner. Chair, I'm not sure as to where this discussion is going, but be as it may, it gives you a sense that this organization is not as holy as it seems to be. There were problems in the organization.
Mr. Franklin, continue.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Moyane, where it's going is that the facts appear to suggest that you executed upon a plan which we see in writing before you even got into SARS. That is what I am suggesting to you. And what I want to please refer you to, I took you to the Newton Commission report. That's in the files, the bundles have been labelled for all of us now, Chair. And in 3B of the application bundle has the Nugent Commission report beginning at page 448.
You must remember at some stage, Mr. Franklin, that Mr. Moyane wanted to talk about the other
Yes,
officials.
that's what I'm getting onto.
Yeah, okay.
You see there,
Is
Mr.
it
Moyane?
bundle? Is it N3B application bundle?
In 3B.
Yeah, okay.
Starts at 448. I'm referring to page 522 to 542. There's a chapter devoted to the resignation of senior employees.
Just 1 second. Yes, Mr. Franklin. Page
Thank you.
525.
Yes, 522
522.
to 542. So, Mr. Moyane, this is the Nugent Commission's analysis of the departure of at least the 6 people that I named for you. And it also deals with the disbandment of the executive. And it sets out here the circumstances which led to each person's departure. Those are findings that have been made by the Nugent Commission.
I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin. For some reason, I don't have pages 518 to 522. I don't know how come. I have up to 517, and then the next page is 523. I don't know whether they are mixed somewhere here.
I'm not sure if they've been misplaced, Chair.
But maybe if you read while somebody tries to get me the right pages, you can continue, and when you read, I will listen.
Thank you. And what I had put to Mr. Moyane is this is the chapter from the Nugent Commission report which details the circumstances of the departure of the 6 people. And I do not intend going through it. This is evidence that was given, and these are findings that have been made. But Mr. Moyane, you said you wished to say something about that.
Chair, not to sound too ridiculous, let's start with Barry Hall. I will not retract Barry Hall. To me, said he was resigning because of personal reasons. And if this commission does not accept it, it's just a decision that you make. He may be called here. Kosilo was already leaving the organization. Mr. Kosilo,
Okay.
the chief officer legal. Mm-hmm. I think he was going on retirement because of age. Mm-hmm. So he said he was leaving.
Yes.
And therefore, I see no reason why. And also in his case, I approached the minister. And I approached him to stay a little bit longer. Jindra Vele, he left because he wanted to leave. He said he was resigning. So if people put their reasons that they are resigning on personal reasons, I have no authority to stop them. Miss Elizabeth Kumalu, she was there on a temporary basis. She was the head of HR. She did indicate to me that as soon as we start the process of structuring the organization, she'll be leaving. She may be called here. She left. She was coming, I think, from Telkom or so. She was there as head of HR. Bob Head is a British national who came here during Mr. Godin's tenure. He came with his girlfriend who was given a job here. And therefore he was also about to leave. And he said he wanted to leave, and I allowed him to leave. Peter Richter, he was implicated in the rogue unit matter, and he said he wanted to leave. So I don't see why I am being brought down here into these matters, because as I said, I have no role except to be able to understand what was happening in the organization. And for me to be drawn to, especially on paragraph number 4, having read the report on the Sunday Times, Mr. Moyane called together the members of EXCO, which I had said to you, Chair, before I read this. And I demanded to know what this report about the rogue unit is all about. All members disavowed. It's incredible, they disavowed. They knew the rogue unit existed. Chair, just for a moment, they knew. Why would then have gone into this deep analysis by Sikhakhane? They knew about this. So there was a cynicism on the part of the leadership, protecting one another. And I could not understand why they say they don't know. There was no, to say that disavow the knowledge of the existence of the rogue unit, it is far-fetched. They knew. They might have known it as HR, whatever whatever research unit, whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is that for them to say they don't know this unit, but the people were there. Mr. Godin here, under oath, accepted that the rogue unit existed. Perhaps the word makes people uncomfortable, but that unit which existed was there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moyane. Could you please now turn back to a document which I took you to earlier?
Which one?
It's at page 513. So it's SARS-01.
Mr. Franklin. If your team could just remember to make sure I've got the missing pages, and my registrar will remind them to.
Yes. I'm sorry, let me give you that reference again. It's AW100, and in the next break, Chair, we will attempt to get those missing pages for you.
Yes.
Would you look at AW100, which commences on page SARS-01, page 534? You have it?
AW100.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the presentation which you identified earlier, SARS 2.0, what has to be done, August 2014.
Yes.
Now, I want to take you to page 535. And in the middle of the page, this is what the plan says. In order to transform SARS into an innovative revenue and customs agency, SA government will have to run a profound strategy refresh and focus on execution to reach SARS' full potential. That was part of the plan which you and Bain had discussed in advance of you taking up your position, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, what is interesting about that, and what I'd ask you to comment on, is that you from the outside, you and Bain, believed that SARS should have to undergo a profound strategy refresh in order to transform it into an innovative revenue and customs agency. That was your objective as written here, is that correct?
Yes, underpinned by the decision by SARS to do a operating model reshift, re-engineering.
Well, this is more than an operating model change. It is to transform SARS into an innovative revenue and customs agency, correct? That's what it says.
That's what it says, but changing operating model, it means you have to do a radical change in the organization.
Now, you've accepted this before. Neither you nor Bain had been within SARS at the time this was written, correct?
Yes.
And I must put it to you, you've accepted yourself you had no revenue authority experience. And I must just tell you that Mr. Williams, who gave evidence here, told the Commission that the Bain leadership team that ultimately was appointed by SARS as consultants had no revenue authority experience either. Do you accept that?
I don't know. They should have appointed people who understood the environment. I think when you have a consulting company, they must attach people who have a sense of what the organization. I'm amazed to hear this.
Did you at any stage ask Mr. Moyane or Mr. Franzen about their experience in revenue authority consulting?
Well, from the discussion I had, they have done consultants with other organizations. They have done benchmarking with various international revenue organizations in the world.
Well, that's, I'm afraid, not what Mr. Williams says.
Pardon?
Not what Mr. Williams told the Commission. He told the Commission that the three people on the team had expertise in telecommunications, financial services and banking, but none of them working with tax authorities anywhere in the world. Are you able to dispute that?
Well, that's what he says, but they were able to interact with my people in a meaningful position on issues that pertain to the sector. So I wouldn't know that they did not have the experience in that field.
And then what I also want to point out to you is the evidence that was given both to the Nugent Commission and to this commission by Mr. Symington and Mr. van Lochrenberg. And tell me if you have any cause to dispute it. And that is that Mr. Symington said that the commission by 2008-2009, that the SARS by those dates was recognized internationally as one of the best and most efficient tax administration services in the world. Would you dispute that?
No.
And Mr. van Lochrenberg, who said that there's a tax administration diagnostic assessment tool which is used internationally as a measurement instrument. And in 2013, SARS scored amongst the top 5 revenue and customs authorities using this tool. Would you accept that?
Yes.
In other words, the organization into which you were appointed was regarded by objective measures as being world class. Accept that?
That's true, but that does not mean that it was lacking in other areas that needed to be strengthened.
Well, one would always attempt to strengthen an organization, but what is apparent from your plan is that you intended a profound strategy refresh and a transformation of the organization into something, you used it into an innovative revenue and customs agency. And what I'd ask you to explain to the Commission is, why was it necessary to put SARS through a profound strategy refresh at the time when it was world class and you had no particular knowledge about revenue authorities? Why that plan?
Well, I think that question would be answered simply by the following. Why would SARS have accepted that there is a need for a new operating model that looks into the organization in a profound manner? Well, if everything was as high level and without the need to change, there were reasons for that.
Well, you refer to those documents, Mr. Moyane. I've told you I haven't seen them.
Pardon?
I haven't seen the document that you refer to. We discussed that earlier, you understand?
Well, I said, even if you don't have the copy, that it's there in the document, it's official, it's called APP 2014-2015, reorganization of SARS.
And can I take you back a few minutes ago, Mr. Moyane, about whether Bain or the people from Bain that you were dealing with, whether they had any experience relating to the type of business that SARS is in. Did you at any stage ask for the profiles of the people concerned to understand what kind of experience they brought to the table to be able to advise you or SARS as to what to do in terms of tax collection? Did you get their profiles to see whether they did have that kind of experience?
You mean before or after I was appointed, Chair?
At some stage before you started at SARS, yeah.
Well, with respect to before, no.
Yeah.
I depended entirely on the knowledge that Mr. Masoni will attach people who understand the sector. Mm-hmm. Post, when they were appointed, I was not involved directly in the appointment of the organization, but I took it on good faith that the teams that is put in place, given the fact that SARS was a world-class organization, do not come and have people who are seconded who does not have the understanding of the background of the organization, what the organization is all about, and what future perspective we want to put in place. I must say here, no, I didn't ask him.
Okay.
But I took it that the people who were seconded to do these things, one way or the other, they must have an experience in the field in which they're operating.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Franklin?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Moyane, could I ask you please to look back at your statement, your affidavit rather, which is in SARS Bundle 3, and I would want you to look please at paragraph 29.
Which one?
Paragraph 29 on page SARS 0320.
Yes.
Now, in this section, you deal with a heading. You say the rogue unit and state capture. Now, just to get the terminology correct, when you arrived at SARS, there was one of many units. One was called the High Performance Unit. And this is the label that was given to it once the press reports came out. Is that correct? The label Rogue Unit.
Yes.
And you have said in paragraphs 29 and 30, finally, I wish to state categorically that the formation and operation of the so-called Rogue Unit, the existence of which Mr. Gordhan has subsequently confirmed, and based on the objective evidence before the Commission, were illegal and probably amounted to a form of state capture. And you say the unit was certainly formed and operated against the clear provisions of the law in breach of the PFMA and other relevant statutes, more particularly in that public funds were received under the false pretense that the unit would be housed at National Intelligence Agency when in fact it was housed at SARS. And then there are two further paragraphs that you deal with. But am I correct in surmising from those paragraphs that as you sit in the witness box in March of 2021, you, although you're not a lawyer, but your understanding and your perception is that the rogue unit, as you call it, was unlawful and its formation was against the clear provisions of the law, as you've said. Is that your standpoint?
Yes, that's a standpoint I have.
I imagine you have followed the litigation that has taken place inter alia between Minister Gordhan and the Public Protector, and you're aware of judgments that have been given in those proceedings. Would you agree?
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think when my counsel was here, discussed this matter sharply with Mr. Gordhan, and I think it was on record as to what the outcome of those judgments were all about.
Yes, well, not much point would be served in reading out the judgment, but what I want to just tell you, we don't have the judgments here, or not readily at hand, but the full bench of the High Court in Gauteng gave a judgment on the 7th of December of 2020 in the matter of Gordhan versus Public Protector and others. It's reported in 2020 JOL 49105 GP. And you don't have it before you, but what I want to put to you is that the full bench of the High Court in Pretoria found unequivocally that the finding of the Public Protector that the so-called rogue unit was unlawful was simply wrong. In fact, they found it was not only wrong in law, but irrational and false to be reviewed and set aside. Now, every leg upon which the rogue unit rested, such as the Sunday Times report, the Sikekana report, the Kruan report, all of those have either been withdrawn or discredited. So I'm interested that as you sit here now, you still adamantly insist that this unit was unlawfully established. Why do you have that approach to this unit?
Chair, I have not had, I've interacted with Advocate Sikekana after the interview with the cross-examination on this matter. As far as he's concerned, his assessment was not in any way seen as not placed in terms of what he discovered at SARS. And I'm not sure as to why the rogue unit matter is so controversial to people here, when it is very clear that the bagging of offices by SARS official, it has nothing to do with tax. You bag offices, that's not tax matter. A matter that I was exposed to, that I still hold, I still stand on what I'm saying. That there may be that decision, I'm not aware of that decision. My legal counsel will have to inform me as to that's the outcome of what happened. But the fact of the matter is that I, as the commissioner, I was approached by members of that particular unit to tell me that they did some of the things that are illegal, that were outside the ambit of a tax authority. So,
yeah, continue.
I'm not sure as to why this question says it's why do we still stick with this? I still stick with this matter. The rogue unit existed unlawfully. That's what was the outcome. Now, you are saying the Crown Commission. The Crown Commission, it was one man who decided that he distances himself with the report, Judge Crown, but he did not consult the other people. The advisory committee consisted of other people, not him only. So it was a personal opinion, not a decision that was taken by the advisory committee.
Yes, you see, Mr. Moyane, the difficulty is that a court has pronounced, and it really doesn't matter what anyone thinks of it, a court has pronounced. And you, I would have thought that you would have looked at that and seen it, but it has pronounced in clear and unequivocal terms that there was nothing unlawful about the establishment of this unit. And in fact, what the court found was that the public protector, in making a finding that the unit was unlawful, allowed her important office to be used to try and resuscitate a long-dead fake news propaganda fiction.
No.
Now, that's a court. You shake your head. 3 judges found that. So whatever you think of it is irrelevant. That's what I'm putting to you.
The witness has...
I'm sorry. Mr. Franklin, had you finished what you were putting first?
Yes, I had one further proposition to put.
Okay, no. Okay, let me hear.
The objection is as follows, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Franklin is putting to the witness that the full bench in Pretoria found against or made certain findings against the public protector in the matter of Pravin Gordhan versus the public protector. And therefore, my learned friend proceeds. It doesn't matter what everybody else says. In other words, it doesn't matter what Sekakane found. It doesn't matter what Kruon found. Those findings by the full bench in Pretoria still stands, and I do not think that is correct. If Mr. Chairman would remember, even during the cross-examination of Mr. Gordhan, he was quizzed about the findings on the utterances of the full bench where he was concerned and the things he said. So if my learned friend says to Mr. Moyane, doesn't matter what Sekakane said for the full bench judgment, I don't think that is correct. And I think Mr. Moyane has a good point when he says, when he reminds my learned friend that in fact, Kruon apologized for saying things without having consulted everybody who was concerned. Maybe my learned friend would want to rephrase the question, but we can't have him saying to Mr. Moyane what the full bench says nullifies every other findings when we all know that, for an example, the Sekakane report has not been reviewed by anyone.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Moyane. Various people and panels expressed views on whether this unit was lawful or unlawful. Is that right?
Yes.
And that includes the Sekakane report, that includes the Kruon panel, and what Mr. Franklin is saying is that you articulated a view, I think earlier on, that that unit was unlawful. I hope my recollection is right. But he was now putting to you that there has now been a judgment of 3 judges in the High Court in Pretoria who have decided that there was nothing unlawful about the establishment of the panel, of the unit. And he asked you whether you still stood by your view, and I think you said you still stood by it. And you said you spoke to Advocate Sekakane, I think, and he said something to you. I can't remember what he said, but I got the impression that you were saying, based on what he said to you, it meant that you didn't change your view about the unit, that it was unlawful. Is that correct?
Yes, Advocate Sekakane stands by what his findings are.
Yes. And you have not read the judgment that Mr. Franklin is referring to?
No, sir, I can't argue with him. That's what the judges are saying.
Yes.
But what begs to be answered and responded to, Chairperson, is if it's unlawful, it's not unlawful. what is the lawfulness of what happened by these members when they barged? I hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
When they barged government entities, that's an issue. That's the matter that I'm raising here. This is not something that is I'm dreaming about. It's a reality of fact. So he can say what he wants to say. But I, as the commissioner, was subjected for a 2.5 confession, open, unsolicited. So I don't understand. He can say whatever he has, but that's fine.
Yeah. Look,
if it's unlawful, that's what the law says. So which means the things that are unlawful, they become lawful.
I don't think Mr. Moyane maybe would be able to contribute much in terms of whether the unit was lawful or not, because he's not a lawyer. He has said he phoned Mr. Skakane. Mr. Skakane said he stood by what he said. So I think you depended on advice on whether it was lawful or not.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, Lord Chair.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there's no point in debating the legality, and nor did I intend to do so.
Yeah.
The point I make is simply that there has been a definitive finding by a three-member bench as to the lawfulness of the rogue unit.
Yes.
But despite that, Mr. Moyane, in March of 2021, still maintains that it was unlawful. And that is the only thing And there's no point in debating my learned friend's objection either.
Yeah.
A full reading of the judgment will show that the court dealt with each of the various bodies that investigated this and disagreed and said that they were wrong.
Yeah.
But I've made my point. Just a final thing for now on the rogue unit. You earlier said words to the effect, you're not sure why, I'm using my words now, why the fuss and why people are still debating the issue of the rogue unit. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Chair, with your permission, I request that we move further, because this is not going to advance any discussion. It's my point and his points and other points. So
yeah, but I think he wants to follow up on what you said. He wants to make sure that he understood you correctly first. I think you were saying something along the lines that you didn't understand why this issue of the unit was being brought up in the commission. That was the impression of, or my impression of what you were saying. Is that correct or not?
yes, the rogue unit matter was brought to your attention. The cross-examination happened here, and there was an acceptance by Mr. Godan that yes, the rogue unit existed. So the other parts that we're arguing about here, they're neither here nor there. If there is a court judgment about the lawfulness of the unit, let's leave it there and let's proceed.
Mr.
Yes, thank you. The last proposition I want to put is that I find it strange that you should express that sentiment, because is it not correct that a number of the steps which you took whilst you were commissioner was based upon a view that there was a unit which got the label rogue unit, which was unlawful? Isn't that
Mr.
correct?
Franklin, with due respect, are you saying that the two people who came and confessed about the wrong activities that they did was lawful?
Mr. Moyane, I'm not
No,
dealing
I'm
with that.
asking.
No, don't ask me anything. I'm saying to you that you as commissioner
Yes.
based a number of your decisions and actions on the assumption that there was an unlawful rogue unit. Not so?
Which decisions did I take? I did not take any decision about the rogue unit. I was dealing with matters of administration in the organization. The rogue unit was just a different matter altogether.
Didn't the disbanding of EXCO follow from the news of the so-called rogue unit?
The disbandment of EXCO was in line with the decision that we discussed with the minister, and it was re-established.
And didn't the departure of a number of the people that I referred to, wasn't it connected with the so-called rogue unit?
No, again, you're wrong. Not the departure of people. Barry Hall did not leave because of the rogue unit. Ravella did not leave because of the rogue unit. Ms. Kumalo did not leave because of the rogue unit, so that assumption is wrong.
Yes, well, as I have seen the documentation, I must put it to you that the rogue unit loomed large during your tenure at SARS, and you raised it at every turn as a justification for your actions.
I disagree with you. I think you are completely missing a point here, Mr. Franklin. I did not run SARS on the basis of the rogue unit. I ran SARS on the basis of what needed to be done at that time. And that assertion is completely unacceptable for me, Chairperson, because I did not run SARS based on the rogue unit. The rogue unit was a side show, that was a distraction that was not necessarily in the organization. And I repeat, Berryho, Kosilo, Makumar, and others left at their own volition. It had nothing to do with the rogue unit. Now you lump everybody around the rogue unit. I'm not sure where you take that from. And Chair, I take my line of thinking. If this is right, it's not correct what Mr. Franklin is saying.
No, you are right to give your response. If you say what is put into you is not correct, that's legitimate for you to say, just as it is legitimate for him to put to you his interpretation of the events or the facts as he sees it, and then give you a chance to respond. Shall we take the 4
Yes.
o'clock adjournment for
Thank you.
10 minutes?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a 10 minutes break. We adjourn. Yes, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I am mindful of the hour, and
Yes.
I am also mindful of the fact that you deferred the 2 applications to cross-examine, and so I have covered the topics that I wish to.
Okay.
There is a very narrowly circumscribed issue which Mr. Fourie wishes to deal with in relation to Mr. Symington, if you give leave.
The problem might be if I don't grant him leave.
Yes, I
Yeah, so that's
accept
why I
that.
said you
Yes.
must cover
Yes.
what you need to cover so that irrespective of what the outcome is,
Certainly.
we don't say something was not covered.
Certainly.
Yeah.
He's simply better placed to deal with
Yeah.
that specific issue.
Yeah, but
And
from
then-
your side you have covered.
Yes. And then I think obviously Mr. Hutton will address you to the
Yes.
extent that he wishes to.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Franklin. I guess Mr. Hutton should be the first one to come back. Somebody must sanitize the podium.
Thank you, Chairperson. I won't go on at length.
Yes.
Chairperson, in essence, the evidence leader has covered, in addition to the main topics,
Yes.
he's covered broadly the areas that I would have wanted to traverse in cross-examination with Mr. Moyane.
Yes.
I'm satisfied
Yes.
at this stage
Yes.
that the matters that I would now raise, in addition to what he has covered,
Yes.
are relatively. I don't want to say nitpicking.
Yes, but
they would be to correct. They would be to correct factual inaccuracies and to
Yes.
obtain concessions in relation to that, but it wouldn't in any way change
big scheme of things,
the bigger
what-
scheme of things and the nature of the responses of Mr. Moyane thus far.
Yes.
We have one. My client has, and I share one concern, and that is that thus far my client's affidavits have not been placed on the website of the Commission.
Okay.
The transcript of his evidence on, I think it was the 24th of March, is up,
Yeah.
but not his affidavits.
Yes.
And his affidavits, his first affidavit and his second affidavit, and we'll stick with those for the time being.
Yeah.
Those affidavits traverse in epic detail much of the
issues.
all of the issues that
Yeah.
that have been in debate.
Yes.
They deal with all sorts of things, such as the legality of the unit, the fact that the existence of the unit was never denied by anybody. What was denied is that it was rogue, that it was illegal, and that's not what is put that Minister Gordhan confessed to. Supposedly, he confessed to the existence of the rogue unit. My understanding is he said no. Of course, there was a unit.
Yeah.
That unit existed,
Yeah.
not that it was rogue. So
Okay.
those issues are all dealt with.
Yeah.
And if the publication takes place,
Yeah.
then we are satisfied that the full picture
Yeah.
has been placed before the Commission.
Yes.
So
No,
in those
that's fine.
circumstances, it would seem to me to be somewhat less than accommodating to the time that
Yeah.
the Commission has for me to
Yes.
now embark on a cross-examination.
Yes. Okay, no, that's fine. Of course, you can speak to Mr. Franklin, particularly if the affidavit has been redacted. There should be no problem with it being put on the website of the Commission.
Yes, I assume that the reason why it hadn't gone up was that the issue of redactions had not yet been finalised.
Yeah.
But if I could simply place on record that we would expect that those
be put up,
affidavits go up
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Yeah, and there should be no problem as far as I'm concerned. But Mr. Franklin and his team will check if there's any problem. Yeah.
It seems to me, Mr. Chairperson, that it's simply a matter of administration.
Yes, yeah, no, it is a matter of administration. So,
Thank you very much.
So I can take the application as withdrawn.
I'm just not pressing.
Yeah. I understand you. I understand you.
I can't withdraw it because my affidavit,
Yeah.
the second affidavit,
Yeah.
has two purposes.
You're not asking me to make any order.
One, to put up the further evidence, and
Yeah.
two, to motivate the application. So the affidavit can't disappear.
But you're not asking me to make any order.
I'm not asking you to make an order.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Fori? Yes,
Thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
Fori.
Chair, this is an application for leave to cross-examine Mr. Moyane in
Yes.
respect of limited aspects relating to the evidence provided by my client, Mr. Flock Symington, at a previous sitting. Chair, the application...
And obviously, based on what went on in the morning, you are aware of the remarks I made in the other application in the morning.
Yes, and I took note of the comment that
Yes.
was made that this is not the correct forum and there's no time to simply indulge people coming to refute allegations that they've been less than truthful, particularly where they have not been implicated in any way in state capture. And certainly, Chair, my client has not been implicated by anyone in anything to do with state capture. He was really a victim of circumstance who happened to stumble across what we submit is glaring evidence. A thread which, when pulled, gives one a glimpse into the abyss of state capture. But why I submit his allowing very limited cross-examination, and I'm happy to commit to a limited time period of, say, 45 minutes. Why I submit that may be in the interests of the Commission. It may assist the Commission in evaluating the credibility of Mr. Moyane's evidence and also the probabilities of his version as compared to the numerous competing versions that are before the
What
the
areas
Commission.
did you want to cover?
In particular, if I could draw your attention, Chair, to...
What I do recall
Yes.
clearly about your client
Yes.
is the incident
Yes.
of his, I think kidnapping might not be an inappropriate
Correct. Correct.
word, when he was denied,
Yes.
refused the opportunity to leave a particular room.
That's correct.
That's the one thing that's uppermost in my mind about him.
Not
him.
quite correct, Chair, and that
Yeah.
really is the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
What I would seek leave to explore under cross-examination of Mr. Moyane is why my client, who is a tax lawyer who spent his whole career at SARS, a man who shuns any kind of limelight, why it was that he found himself in this dramatic situation where he's held against his will by members of law enforcement and the Commissioner's own bodyguard, and where a document which was inadvertently handed to him, of which he was unaware at the time of any of the significance of it, was taken from him by force by members of the Hawks.
But you would pursue that questioning on the basis that it would achieve what would you be seeking to prove in the end?
Where I submit it may go.
Where will it lead us?
Right. What it will show, Chair, I submit, is that Mr. Moyane was instrumental in suppressing exculpatory evidence about Mr. Pillay, Mr. Magashula, and Minister Gordhan, and that he was instrumental in withholding that evidence, that exculpatory evidence, from the NDPP. Had the NDPP been given that evidence as they should have been, there probably would never have been charges brought. That is where I hope to go in the examination, the cross-examination of Mr. Moyane.
And what would that mean in the context of the terms of reference of the Commission?
Well, it would, I submit, be a strong indication of participation in the state capture project.
Speak more about that.
Very well. Being the deployment of Mr. Moyane into SARS by former President Zuma to achieve certain goals, one of which is getting rid of people who are obstacles to the state capture project, namely enforcement officials who pose a risk to either beneficiaries or funders of state capture, or officials such as Mr. Pillay and potentially Minister Gordhan, who are simply obstacles to the broader state capture project. Now, Mr. Symington has been called a fantasist by Mr. Moyane, and simply a purveyor of other
What
people's
allegations has
conspiracies.
Mr. Moyane made against your client?
What he says is there are two primary allegations he makes, Chair, in Mr. Moyane's affidavit.
Well, let's go to your client's application. Where does he say what it is that, what allegation Mr. Moyane has made against him?
Chair, my client's...
That you said to him, because
Yes.
such an application must be prompted by allegations made by the witness against the applicant.
Yes. Chair, on behalf of my client, my attorneys filed a notice in terms of rule, I think it's 3(4), sub 4 of the rules of the Commission, to cross-examine various people, including Mr. Moyane, and the notice is not accompanied by an affidavit which sets out exactly who said what and what issues we seek to cross-examine on. It simply refers to Mr. Symington's founding and replying affidavit in the Commission. Now, both those affidavits were filed prior to Mr. Moyane filing his affidavit.
You see, you've got to make your case in your founding affidavit. So your client has got to make his case for leave to cross-examine Mr. Moyane in his affidavit. He needs to say, this is what Mr. Moyane has said about me or against me, and this is why it's so important in terms of the context of the function or objectives of the Commission and the terms of reference, and this is how it affects me, and this is how it will benefit the Commission if I'm allowed to, if I'm granted leave to cross-examine. So I would look at the affidavit to see what case is made out. That's why I say,
Yes.
what allegation made by Mr. Moyane against him is he relying on?
Chair, I cannot point to an affidavit by Mr. Symington. To answer the chairperson's question, what I can do is, if allowed from the bar, point to Mr. Moyane's affidavit, simply to show the two key allegations which I seek leave to test in cross-examination.
But your client doesn't rely on those allegations.
My client hasn't opposed to an affidavit in which he says, in which he responds to Mr. Moyane's affidavit.
Yes. You see, that's going to be problematic because I look at his affidavit to see what case he has made out, and one of the things I look at is Why does he want to cross-examine this particular witness? What has this witness alleged against him? And what does he have to say about those allegations?
Yes.
And if he doesn't say, this is what this witness has alleged against me, and this is my response, then there's a problem. You understand?
I do, Chair. I must admit that Mr. Symington's version is fully before the Commission, both in his 2 affidavits and also in his extensive evidence that he has given. And I certainly won't seek to put any proposition
But
to
I
this
want,
witness.
you accept, I won't go around looking for all the affidavits he has filed in the Commission.
Yes.
When I want to look at what his case is, I have to look at this affidavit which is filed in support of his application for leave to cross-examine.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
I do, Chair, but I would submit there is a bit of a lacuna in the rules of the Commission when it comes to this type of application to cross-examine by someone who has not been implicated in state capture. The rule really deals with giving people the right to reply who have been implicated.
Well, the rules seek to give only people who are implicated by a particular witness the right to apply for leave to cross-examine.
Yes.
Again, the right to apply, not the right to cross-examine. So you have got to bring yourself within the rules, Rule 3.3 or Rule 3, to say, I'm an implicated person. I've been implicated by this witness. And part of what I was saying in the morning is, if you have been implicated in acts of corruption, fraud, or state capture, your case might be much more easier than if your complaint is, this witness has implicated me in lying, because he says this is what I said, but really in the context of what we're talking about, it doesn't go into the big picture.
Chair, I can't rely on the rules. I have to rely on the regulation, which gives the chairperson or the Commission an overriding discretion.
Yes.
And the key factors are whether the evidence will be of assistance to the Commission. That really is the key test. And I submit that you would have a discretion and the power to grant leave to a witness who has given evidence but is not personally implicated in state capture to cross-examine. And I understand it's a discretion that you could exercise either way.
Yes.
Lastly, Chair, if I could perhaps just remind you that you mentioned this morning the right of individuals should always be taken into account. My client was totally innocent. He stumbled accidentally onto a thread which, as I've said, when pulled, exposes a glimpse into the abyss. He was kidnapped, he was held against his will by law enforcement, and then he was subject to bogus charges and nearly lost his job.
But of course,
because of this.
You accept that he has taken the stand, he has put the facts as he knows them.
I do.
The public is aware of his version.
And you gave him a fair and adequate hearing.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that, Chair.
Yeah.
It really would be then just to challenge Mr. Moyane with the heart of Mr. Symington's version.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm not going to give reasons, but if reasons are asked for, they will be provided. This application is dismissed. Thank you. You were done, Mr. Franklin.
Yes,
Let
that
me
concludes.
let me ask Counsel for Ms. Moyane whether she wishes to ask any clarificatory questions or re-examination on Mr. Moyane or...
Mr. Chairman, thank you. There are no questions from me. Actually, I was going to ask if Mr. Moyane can be excused from the cold seat there where he is. There are no questions.
There are no questions. Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Moyane. We have come to the end of your evidence and questioning. Thank you very much for availing yourself. We are going to Mr. Franklin to come back. I take it that you have nothing further to say.
No, that
Yes.
concludes the questioning. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we are going to adjourn for the day. And in terms of the public, I just mentioned that we don't have any evening session this evening. But tomorrow and Friday, I will hear the evidence of Mr. Anoj Singh, again in relation to the Transnet stream. So there's no evening session this evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to everybody. We adjourn.
Yo, these evidence leaders, you must have an allowance for sickness. This is winter. You need a winter allowance here.